Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Nalawak. I am the Chef Federal Customer Architect. I'm here today with Brad Shelton. Brad, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Brad Shelton with GDIT. I'm a senior Linux cloud engineer as well as the cloud team lead for both the operations, engineering, and migration teams.
Okay, today Brad and I are going to talk to you and give you a high-level overview and talk about some of the technology choices in the solution for GIT's Chef as a Service. First, I'd like to start off by talking about, you may have heard Galen speak about Federal Island. It is a place, and we live on it together with Chef and GDIT and their customers. As I see, there are many of you out there who also live on Fed Island or places where you're facing challenges where you have things like air-gapped networks and stringent security requirements, restrictive enclaves, and you have to solve for challenging security controls where it's not easy to reach into systems or move files between systems. And there can also be limited sets of tools available, as in if you're using AWS or Azure, and you may not have all the tools available that are available in commercial cloud. And that is a problem that many of us face. Also, there may be restricted approved versions of the tools. There may be GOTS versions of common software that have restrictions that the commercial versions don't. So Brad, tell us a little bit about where your journey began when you were working with us to develop the solution for your enterprise Chef as a Service.
Yeah, so kind of where we began is on my team, we're in AWS. We have 300 plus accounts. And really just seeing what's going on in the accounts, both from a configuration point of view as well as security posture, it's very limited because each program kind of maintains their own environment and things of that nature, as well as any of those programs coming into our environment was looking at from anywhere from like a very minimum 6-month ATO or authority to operate all the way up to potentially 18 months, right? So as far as scalability, we didn't have it. As far as visibility, because of that sort of limitation, that wasn't an option. You know, we're looking to really solve those problems and just auditing the environment in general. If you're in the federal space, what you end up seeing a lot of is manual stuff. Let's break out a list of like 800 controls and go line by line and find out, okay, did you turn on FIPS? Did you turn this on? Why is this configured this way? And that in itself can easily extend that to be a couple months, just sitting down with a person going through every type system. Like he'd mentioned, I know if any of you guys went to Galen and Jason's talk, they talked about some of those issues as well.
So you talk a little bit about lengthy authorization to operate, yes. Lengthy ATOs, and I think that's something that I know I see a lot of folks here from either solutions integrators, Mr. Belt, and folks from different agencies that have to solve for these lengthy ATO processes where they can't get applications out to production because they have to go through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or month or longer processes, and that's lost value to the mission, to your program owners.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a developer in an environment where they want to add a new feature to an application, right? Or create a new application that's going to be amazing for the company. They go to build it, and then 16 months later, they finally get approval to actually use it, right? The momentum that goes behind that is just stopped in its tracks very quickly in the process. So it kills a lot of the motivation as a whole. And so we really have to push and drive and try to keep that motivation up while we're going through all this other stuff, right? It's pretty annoying, to be honest.
So then scalability, being able to scale solutions out has also a challenge, and that's something that you faced with your customers as well, correct?
Yes, very much so. When you're doing things manual, everybody knows the only way to get faster is to get more people to do the manual stuff more or automate it.
Correct. So, and then auditing, how important is auditing these environments and as far as reducing the ATO, and how important was that to your solution in providing Chef as a service?
It was, I mean, auditing is the #1 thing in our environment. Both when you decide to put something out there that's new, throughout the life of that entire thing, spot checks, you know, there's yearly auditing, there's weekly auditing, there's a lot of auditing that happens.
So who out there is also having that same kind of challenges or trying to solve or have solved that? I see hands pretty much across the board. So Brad, tell us about like why should we fix that?
Well, I mean, I think we covered some of that, but as far as just the way mindset-wise, right? When we're trying to provide those applications to individuals out there that really need it in a quick manner, because this new feature is actually going to enable them to get data a lot quicker or a more organized fashion and be able to process that and make decisive decisions based on that, it becomes very crucial. And again, when you put that blocker in there, the ATO is really what it comes down to. When you put that blocker in there, it prevents that. It also, as far as our security teams, I talk about either you get a lot more people to help you with the auditing, or you try to automate it, right? Going through auditing, I've been through numerous ones, and they're not in any way efficient. A lot of people try to go, you know what, security's kind of put them off to the side, because if they really become the focus of what you're doing, which happens in our environment, then it extends that. So really trying to help them with their consistency and just being efficient will help us improve that ATO as a whole, and give back kind of that control to them, because at this point in our journey, we didn't have that control, we didn't have that visibility, we didn't have we were more proactive than, we were more reactive than proactive, and being proactive, it puts everyone a little bit more at ease. So.
Okay. So we know the why now, why it is important to solve this for your customers. So let's talk a little bit about like what requirements are necessary to solve for that.
So looking at what some of the issues we were facing, our solution that we were looking for really had to provide insight across the enterprise, not to just my teams, but to our security teams, to the teams that were deploying the new content and new applications, things of that nature. Because if everyone along the entire path had that insight and that visibility into what's happening, when someone goes to get ATO, there shouldn't be a question at that point whether they were going to get it, how long that would take, because everybody would already see from day one kind of their environment, their account, and kind of what that looked like. Another component is configuration management, right? Without having a solution where we can say, we know that this is configured this way and we can validate it, then we kind of lose that trust across the enterprise, right? So if you have a program that stands up, 12 servers and they configure one of them for the auditing, they go through the auditing on that one system, well, what about the other 11? Are they configured the same? Who knows? Maybe you had 4 different people configuring those systems, and one person decided, oh, you know what? I don't want to use SE Linux, or I don't want to use FIPS on this box, but another person did, right? So that consistency and being able to validate that was another thing we saw was an important component of having a good enterprise solution. And ultimately, improving our ATO, right? Waiting 18 months to get a single application out into production is not a great way to operate at all. that like I said before, it definitely curbs the enthusiasm of really producing good product on a continuous basis. We also needed it to be scalable, not just for us, but for our security teams. We needed it to enable them to stop worrying about the small things and really focus on the cool stuff, right? Don't worry about, we're going through an entire stack of papers, 18 different or 800 different controls, and look in the environment and go, oh, okay, this is this program. This is kind of what they're at. Maybe I want to focus on these areas because I see some failures there, and really be a lot more efficient and at an enterprise scale versus a single program by program basis. It's kind of what we were looking at. And having the ability thereafter to be able to monitor kind of what's going on, right? It's great if you do your initial assessment, but what happens afterwards? We have a lot of continuous monitoring stuff going on. It works great certain things work great on-prem, but when you go to the cloud, it's a different environment. When you have auto scaling and things going up and down and kind of what that looks like, it's been very difficult for our security teams to comprehend that I can spin up a system because I only need it for 10 minutes and then it's gone, right? Trying to tell them, you're not gonna get a scan in 10 minutes was hard for them to swallow. So showing them that from the moment a system comes up throughout the life of that system, even if it is 10 minutes, you're gonna have visibility into the product and into that server or whatever the application is, as well as, and I know a lot of y'all are probably familiar with this, 0 days. Have any of y'all tried to roll out a 0 day across your entire enterprise and it take more than a couple hours? So being able to solve that is huge. So that's a lot of the what we were looking at as far as an enterprise solution. We needed to solve all of those components.
So we're here at ChefConf, so obviously we're going to talk about what the chef products that integrated into your solution, and we have obviously you're using Chef Client, using Chef Automate for visibility.
We are.
Inspect for compliance and integration, testing, and then Habitat for, just briefly tell us what is Habitat doing for you right now in your solution?
Yeah, so I'll kind of lay out our solution that we're working with now. So we have Habitat in our, like Jason was saying, we have Habitat, Automate, Chef Infra or Chef Server, and Chef Client as well as Inspect. What we're doing is we're running Chef Inspect within Habitat on our AMIs. When we give it out to any program out there, we put it on the AMIs. So they're using our AMIs, they spin it up. We instantly have at least a baseline for the OS as far as hardening and kind of that security posture. And that's how we solved that component of it, as well as the ability to run configuration management running Chef Client within Habitat. Gives us the ability to roll out those 0 days and things of that nature. And everything reporting back to Automate gives our security teams the ability to see all of that, see what changes are happening, see the historical data of that, as well as our programs, right? A program spins up an AMI and they go, oh, I think I've stigged or hardened this box as far as I need to. They go look and Automate and go, oh, nope, I definitely missed these 4 things. Let me go fix that. And they have that sort of visibility. So that's kind of how we're using our solution.
So then, I'm curious then, what was the major driver that made you choose? There's a lot of solutions out there doing different things. There's a lot of overlap in some tools. What's the key thing that made you choose these parts of the chef toolkit for solving those issues?
It was a lot of things. Honestly, we were using Chef Server at the time as configuration management. We were trying to push it down that road. And then we stepped back and went, you know what? Why are we trying to push configuration management when we're really a security-centric environment? So we're like, you know what, let's start really hammering on inspect and how we can better utilize that to get that visibility and build towards the compliance component. And it just kind of started leading down this path of, okay, well, cool, we can do this and use inspect and it reports and automate, that's great. Well, how do we then control it for each individual program of over 300 different accounts? And that was a question we had, and we asked you guys, and we came up with the solution of running inspect and habitat on the systems and as our base AMI. And so it just kind of led along the path. It was just a natural progression of using all the different tools within Chef and in a different way we've never thought about using it at all.
Great.
So.
Awesome. And so, you talked earlier about the challenges of validating things in the cloud versus trying to do it in traditional. So being able to write the policies for all the aspects and for like IAM controls, those are things that you had to solve, and that's what you used inspect for, correct?
Yeah.
All the things we see here, virtual machines, security groups, block storage security policies, the different cloud networking, like IAM we had mentioned, log management. It's very important that you have a vendor agnostic way to do that, right? Because how many here are deploying to different cloud providers or plan to deploy to different cloud providers?
Or even on-prem and cloud.
Or hybrid. Oh, all the hands went up. Well, geez, So while there are a lot of great vendor-specific or vendor-centric tools to do that, it's oftentimes they kind of keep you in that, try to keep you just in that space. So it's a very, very common theme to pick vendor-agnostic tools to do the thing.
Yeah, and I think the biggest benefit for us, right, is when we really came up with a solution that worked for the cloud side of it, one of the major things we looked at was, well, our environment's not just in the cloud. Like, we have on-prem stuff. We have on-prem cloud. Like, we have to have a solution that works in both locations, all three locations. And when we started looking at our solution, it worked in all the locations. There wasn't anything that said, hey, you had to do this in AWS or you have to do this in Azure. There are going to be some differences, right? But the solution as a whole, it works across the enterprise. You can monitor your logs the same way, right? Making sure if you're sending it to, let's say, ArcSight or some other log collection system, you can still, the configuration for that is still the same no matter where you're at, right? And so being able to use that kind of solution across all environments is really what drove it home for us.
Okay, great. So let's just talk a little bit about basically what the stack is for your enterprise Chef as a Service solution. And all of these tools that we're going to go down here, some are Chef, some aren't, but these are, the things they have in common are they are as code tools, so you can version control them, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're cloud agnostic, location, whether it's on-prem or,
yeah,
for the most part, right?
AWS
obviously AWS, but so like for application and dependencies, we use Chef Habitat for config and hardening, yep. Chef Infra, provisioning, CloudFormation.
Yeah,
obviously that's for AWS.
Yeah, and with provisioning component, there's a lot of different tools that you could use out there. CloudFormation is one of them.
Okay. Then and then you use a tool Packer to build your image. Yep. How important is that?
It's very important. We put out AMIs for all of the different OSs every month. Very automated, and we basically only have to troubleshoot any sort of changes that we have to make due to 0 days or things of that nature, and being able to test that out in an automated fashion, and not waste our time for 3 weeks trying to figure out how do I create this AMI that I created last month, but something slightly changed and it's not working, right? we can really focus more of our time on really producing better code, improving services, things of that nature.
Okay, great. And then, of course, we mentioned your provider for this specific solution is only in AWS right now?
Yeah. Our on-prem guys, on-prem cloud guys are actually, we're integrating them into a lot of the stuff we're doing because they're trying to do the same solve the same problems we're solving. So.
Okay, and then you guys use GitLab for your source control.
Yep.
And then Chef Automate to kind of tie everything together, right?
Yeah, and that, like I said earlier, that is key for us, for our programs, and for security. That visualization of the environment as a whole it makes our security team a lot more comfortable versus going through every line of code and every line in the control and trying to write out, okay, they did this to pass this, right? And really being able to see everything.
Okay, great. So just real quickly, let's kind of like give a kind of an abstract overview of what your hardened AMI pipeline looks like. So up in the upper left corner, you have your developer where you write code. It gets pushed to a Git repo. You have a CI/CD server, or a solution that takes over. You build your OS, apply a configuration to it. You produce your AMI. You then provision an instance, test it, report everything passes, and then it goes back into publishing the artifact. And then if there's changes, then you go back through again, correct?
Yeah, so we can incorporate, and I think on the next slide we talk about it, but incorporate any sort of feedback that we get from our customers saying, hey, we're looking for this on the AMI, and really evaluate whether it's something that should be done at the enterprise level or really at the program level.
Okay, great. And so looking at all these steps, like how much of this is automated?
Most of it, if not all, except for people reporting things in, trying to commit and validation of that kind of stuff.
Okay. And how fast is this?
I mean, to roll out on multiple networks, we roll out for 8 different AMIs every month. It takes us 10 minutes tops. 10 minutes.
Yeah. So that's I'll take it. Who else would like to do this? Publish their AMIs hardened and in 300 accounts in 10 minutes? Mark raised his hand. He raised his hand. So this is good, right?
Yeah.
So let's just kind of cut off a little bit at the top, but
yeah.
I'm sure people are curious about specifically. That was sort of the abstract. So specifically, let's talk through. You have 2 pipelines. Kind of talk through the blue and red, and sort of touch on what technology choice you have and what it does in each stage.
Yeah. So the red pipeline is going to be how we're creating AMIs. So I know it says developers there, but it's typically my guys who do this, but we'll push any sort of updates we have for our next AMI release, whether that be one of the security tools gets updated, things like that. We push it into Git, which kicks off a Jenkins build automatically. It calls Packer and runs Chef client on the systems, runs our cookbooks on an AMI, creates what we call a hardened AMI. And if everything passes on that, it gets reported back to Jenkins. If it does pass, then Jenkins goes ahead and kicks off another AMI and through CloudFormation, and it runs the habitat inspect for the OS as far as validation of the hardening components, things like that, which we then see into Automate. And if everything gets passed at that point, we validate it inside of Automate. And we approve the merge, and it gets shared out to everybody. So,
great.
And that's a quick flyby.
Yeah. Did everyone get a? You can take a picture of this. This is not classified. Okay, great.
Any questions?
Before we move off this slide, just any quick questions about what this is or the tech that's used. I mean, nothing too detailed, but.
Okay.
No? Okay. So Brad, just give us a few of the key benefits that you're realizing for your customer by doing this whole enterprise, this whole Chef as a service using all these coded tools.
Yeah, and just to let y'all know, that was just one example of how using one of our pipelines that we're using, where we have multiple ones out there. But really, going back to what we were trying to solve, right? We get that visibility from the moment systems are spun up throughout the life of them until they're terminated. And that could be in an auto-scaling group. That could be over a year. I don't know why people do that in the cloud, but they maintain systems that don't get rebooted for about a year, right? It doesn't, yeah. So, but maintaining that visibility, seeing our security posture throughout the entire life, as well as the entire environment, is one of the benefits we get out of it, as well as because we can see that the security posture of the environment, we can then start really controlling our environment and what we're wanting to see. Maybe we need to set another setting over here so that we're not as vulnerable, let's say, to any sort of non-password kind of stuff or whatever have you, right? Making sure that we are truly getting positive control and not just saying, you know what, I need access to this, so I'm gonna make my security group wide open. I mean, when we're testing, I know a lot of people probably out there have tried that and said, okay, make sure it's not the security group, let's open it up. But really controlling that and seeing that effect, but not impacting the environment. And we also, one of the great things is before stuff gets into production, when teams are going through their development and testing, before it gets into production, they already see the impacts, right? They already see those issues that they're going to have and why they wouldn't be passing their ATO. So with that ability, they can correct those before even trying to get it, which even more so speeds up the ATO process because they can go, I know I had these problems, I fixed them, here's all of the data. You can see it in Automate. And with that, we also reduce our risk and our vulnerabilities, right? When everybody's focused on just their stuff and trying to get it into production and working with security for 18 months, you know, at some point they're like, I just need this done. And sometimes security kind of falls off to the side, you know, until they're like, hey, we were supposed to do the scan. But really, it forces everybody to be aware of security, and it also helps people to go, oh, that's a great idea. Let me go fix that real quick. So you get that consistency. It also enables our security team to have that same visibility. So they see it in development and know what a program needs to fix before they get to production or even put in for an ATO. So they can already say, okay, this program, I see their stuff, you know, being flagged on these components. So when they come to put in for their ATO, I want to check those just to be sure that they have fixed them, right? And it enables our security teams to not waste their time on all these massive controls and only focus on what needs to be focused on, and gives them the time and ability to really do other things, you know, do other security things, make it better, more efficient in other areas. And with all those together, you also reduce that ATO. You reduce the time to production, right? Just because everybody's focused and working on security versus pushing against security, right?
So I know that you were able to, you said your average ATO process for taking new systems to production was on average?
Anywhere from I'd say 6 to 18 months.
6 to 18 months.
If you're lucky, you get 6 months.
Yeah. So using this solution for yourself, you were able to reduce your ATO time to 2 months, correct?
Yeah, so we were able, with this implementation that I've described, what we were able to do is, in a brand new cloud environment, roll out all of our base services and infrastructure components within 2 months and get an ATO.
But we're not there yet, are we?
We are. Our other programs are still working.
What are we trying to get to?
We're trying to get to there's a thing at where I work. It's ATO in a day.
ATO in a day. That would be a great concept, wouldn't it?
But 2 months compared to 18 is a massive win for us.
Massive win, but I think we'll get there eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really what it comes down to is starting that trust between what you're doing in your environment and your security and your other programs or developers, right? Creating trust between that and your systems and what you're doing in your environment. With Chef and with A2 and Inspect and a lot of those profiles, you're able to do that. You're able to have a central thing that you can say, I trust this and I know what this is like, right? And then security guys I trust this too. And it really helps you work with security. And that's probably the biggest thing that's going to reduce that ATO.
Great, thank you, Brad. This time, I'd like to take questions from anyone about, we can go back and look at any of the slides you want to, but please, questions.
I've got a mic, so I'll just...
Yeah, we got a mic, so just raise your hand and they'll help you out.
Sort of mostly a technical one. You say you use Chef, and could we go back to the slide that had that one?
This one, yes.
Right, so GitLab hosts all of your...
All of our we put our cookbooks and everything.
Packer profiles, Inspect profiles, and everything, right? So,
yep.
How do you push from GitLab to, like the Chef server or the...
So it's through Jenkins. We utilize Jenkins to do that. We also have, when we're merging to master, we also have a script that's watching master on it to pull that down. Okay. As far as you're talking about pushing to Chef server, right?
Right. Because in our environment, we have multiple Chef servers, and they're all supposed to be identical copies, but they don't talk to each other in any way, shape, or form. So we have this, what do you call it? Anyway, sync is the
sync.
Name,
oh, it's
right?
better.
And its job is to, there's two parts of it. One that does the instantaneous, somebody changes something somewhere, and that single change gets pushed pretty quickly, which is nice. We didn't have that until recently, and before that it was a cron job every 15 minutes where the whole world gets dumped and reloaded into all of the Chef servers, and that was kind of painful. So I was just curious to hear how you guys handled it.
Yeah.
That's good.
It is painful.
So. Anyway, thanks.
Yep. Any more questions? Anybody?
Oh, Mark's got a question too.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Nick.
So I'll try and make it real quick. We also are using something similar with Packer and using Chef we're packaging whatever Chef artifacts we need in there. Can you talk a little bit about your image selection process, like how you found your base image of truth that you then worked with the government on, and how that process worked?
Yeah. So right now we're pulling from our source. Can't get into too much detail.
There may be things that he can't answer for the customer. Exactly,
Yeah, so really what we were looking at was we don't want any added stuff on our AMIs. We actually spun up quite a few just to see what they were, how the build was. Some of them had the partitions and stuff, different things of that nature. And we kind of just went through them and said, you know what, this one, I can work with this one because they're doing, X, Y, Z, but I can undo some of that if I need to. And so that's kind of how we work through it. It's not the best answer, but it's with
so there's a bit of pruning. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, with stuff I can't talk about, but
yeah.
So.
Thanks, Nick.
Not sure if you can answer this or not, but is your accrediting authority nationwide or regional? And if it's regional, how do you handle the regional authentication approvals to operate and their different views on what should and shouldn't be considered compliant?
So our authority to operate is for the entire environment. It's not just based on a region. It's based on program.
And this isn't GovCloud, by the way.
No.
This is something different.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
I have different accrediting authorities in different areas.
So ours is also, and that's more of how the our customers kind of laid out, I think, is one of the differences. They get a project, and whatever that project is, wherever that authority is sitting at, is kind of location, right? But it's for the entire environment and for that program, not regionally based. So
I think Mark had a question in the front.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted you to, sorry.
He's losing his voice. It's okay.
laryngitis. I wanted to go into like the ATO process, you know, the as it was and now the to be, and the cultural shift that you had to go through with your isms and CISO and things of that nature.
yeah, so going through this whole process with our security team was very much a challenge. We, like I said earlier, we started it as a configuration management, talking to our security teams, hey, we can do this. We can push 0 days with, you know, if everybody's using Chef Client, right? And they're like, well, this program over here, you can't touch their stuff at all. We're like, well, there goes that, right? And really, we knew we had to get security involved. And that's when we kind of stepped back and went, well, we want security involved because they're the ones that are going to make this process easier for everyone. We have to get them involved. And we stepped away from configuration management and said, you know what? Right now, I don't care how you're going to do configuration management. However you're doing that, whether that be manual, whether that be using Chef or other tools, you still have to be compliant. At the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, you still have to be compliant. Once we started talking about that with our security teams, they started getting really interested because they're like, wait, you're telling me that I can make sure all these programs are compliant and gets reported into one place and I can see it over the entire life of a system? We're like, yeah, and we can do configuration management, right? We kind of threw that in afterwards. We went all the way up to our CISO, and we talked to him about this, and he's like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I don't need my guys wasting their time on this massive spreadsheet. I need them to focus on security. I know that's part of it, but I need them to focus on that. And that's really when we started seeing that change. So,
I think we have time for one more question.
anybody?
All right.
Well,
thank you, Brad, and thanks everyone for coming.
Definitely
and
appreciate all the
listening.
time.
And
If
if-
y'all do have anything, I'll still be in the area for a little bit. So just hit me up and I'll answer what I can.
All right, thanks everyone.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of ChefConf.